7 signs you're not just dark or light chosen one, you're both. There's a moment in every awakened soul's journey where the lines blur, where the teachings of light begin to feel incomplete, where the shadows you once tried to purge start whispering truths the light never told you. And if you're watching this, chances are you've had that moment too, maybe more than once. You've walked deep into the light, prayed, meditated, healed, transcended. You've cleansed, purified, aligned. And still, something within you stirred, something that didn't want to be discarded or transcended. A part of you that didn't want to become higher, it wanted to become whole. And that's when the real awakening starts. Because here's the truth that most spiritual circles won't tell you. Not every chosen one is light. And not every chosen one is dark. Some of us were never meant to choose a side. Some of us were born to carry both. We're the bridge between realms, the edgewalkers. Ones who were sent not to escape duality, but to embody its sacred union. If that resonates with you, if something in your chest just opened, if a chill just ran through your spine, then listen carefully. You're not here to be just light or just dark. You're here to be the third energy, the fusion, the alchemy. And that means your path is going to look nothing like the others. Most people are comfortable choosing a side, light or dark, good or bad, hero or villain. It's easier that way. It feels safer to belong to a camp, to wear a label, to follow the rules of your chosen polarity. But you've always felt like you didn't fully belong anywhere. You were too intense for the light workers, too mystical for the rebels, too empathetic for the realists, too grounded for the dreamers. You were told you're contradictory. But what if you're not? What if your contradiction is your gift?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first sign that you're not just a dark or light chosen one, but both, is that you've never been able to fully reject either side of yourself, even when you tried. You've tried to be only good. You've tried to walk only in love, only in peace, only in forgiveness. And then something in you snapped. You realized your anger wasn't going away. You realized your power wasn't born from being nice, it came from being honest. You realized that suppressing your shadow didn't make you holy, it made you hollow. And so you began to listen to it, to the part of you that raged, the part of you that remembered lifetimes of betrayal, persecution, exile. You stopped trying to kill it. You started sitting with it. And for the first time, you felt real. This is what it means to carry both energies. You don't reject your divinity, but you also don't deny your humanity. You don't worship the light, but you don't glorify the dark either. You walk between. You hold paradox. And that's why your journey has been so intense, because you're integrating what most people are still trying to separate. The second sign is that you've always felt like you're being prepared for something massive, but no one has been able to tell you what it is. You've looked for teachers, guides, blueprints. You've tried to fit yourself into spiritual systems. Maybe you followed gurus, ceremonial leaders, sacred texts, but nothing fully fit. You always reached a point where it felt limited, like it wasn't speaking the full language of your soul. And that's because it wasn't. You're not here to follow a path. You're here to forge one. You're not here to repeat what's been done. You're here to bring something that's never existed before. And so your preparation has been brutal, because you're carrying codes for a world that doesn't exist yet. And here's where it gets even deeper. You've probably felt like you've lived multiple lives in one, like you've died and been reborn 1,000 times already. That's not imagination. That's frequency training. Every version of you that's fallen apart was a necessary death. Every tower that collapsed was a sacred initiation. Every dark night of the soul was not punishment, it was refinement. You weren't being broken, you were being tempered, like a sword being forged in fire, because only the soul that has walked through both light and shadow can carry the frequency of wholeness. And that's what you're here to do. The third sign is that people don't know what to do with you. You confuse them, you trigger them. You awaken things in them they're not ready to face. Some are drawn to you magnetically and then suddenly disappear. Others try to project their own unresolved duality onto you. They want you to be all light, all love, all peace. Or they want you to be all rage, all rebellion, all destruction. But you're neither, and you're both. And that's terrifying to those who haven't yet made peace with their own paradox. So you'll be misunderstood, often. But that's part of your frequency. You're not meant to be understood, you're meant to be felt. Your presence alone is a disruption to the old programming. You walk into a room and people either open or close, not because of what you say, but because of what you carry. You are a mirror. You are a reminder. You are living proof that it's not only possible to be both light and dark, but that it's necessary for the next evolution of consciousness. So I want to ask you something now, and I want you to sit with it not just mentally, but in your body, in your breath. What would it feel like to stop trying to be one or the other? What kind of power would rise in you if you allowed all of yourself to exist in the same space, in the same breath, without shame? Because that is the beginning of your real path, not the path of becoming something new, but the path of unifying what you've always been. The bridge between realms, why you were born to hold what others can't. There's a reason you've never fit neatly into one world. A reason why, no matter how hard you've tried, you've never found full belonging in the light or the dark. You've tasted both. You've walked through the sacred temples of purity, and you've crawled through the underworld of chaos. You've prayed with saints and danced with shadows. And through it all, you began to realize something eerie, something profound you can hold both without being consumed by either. That's not a contradiction. That's your design. Because you were never meant to pick a side. You were meant to be the bridge. Being the bridge means you feel things others can't even name. You walk into a room and instantly sense the unspoken dynamics. You read between words. You see behind smiles. You feel the energies that others suppress. And you don't just feel them, you absorb them. You metabolize them. You alchemize them. And that used to overwhelm you. It used to break you. There were days when you thought something was wrong with you, days when the weight of the world felt like it was suffocating your spirit. But now you're starting to see that wasn't weakness. That was training. Your nervous system was being expanded to carry a frequency most humans can't hold. Because here's the thing, most people live in collapse. Collapse into light where they bypass, spiritualize, and avoid anything uncomfortable. Or collapse into shadow where they rage, destroy, spiral, and numb. But you were built to stand in the middle, to hold the fire of rage and the water of compassion at the same time, to hold boundaries and forgiveness, grief and gratitude, death and rebirth. You're the in-between, and the in-between is where real transformation happens. The fourth sign that you are both a light and dark chosen one is that your life has been a series of initiations that made absolutely no sense until recently. You've been through betrayals that shattered your identity, losses that stripped you to your bones, mystical experiences that cracked your perception of time and space. And for years you carried the chaos without context, but now it's starting to come together. The pieces are clicking. You're realizing you weren't just being tested, you were being entrusted. Entrusted with wisdom that can't be taught in books. Entrusted with a depth that only comes through descent. Entrusted with a presence that can hold others through their darkest nights because you've already walked through your own. And that's the fifth sign, you naturally become a guide, even when you don't ask to be. People come to you with their pain, Strangers feel safe around you. Friends confess things they've never told anyone else. You're the one they call when everything falls apart. And though it can be exhausting, there's a part of you that knows this is sacred. You're not just a healer or a coach or a friend, you're a frequency holder. You don't always have the answers, but your beingness stabilizes chaos. You are the calm in the storm, not because you've never known chaos, but because you've merged with it and survived. But there's another layer to this one most don't talk about. The more you step into this role, the more isolated you can feel, because who holds space for the one who holds space for everyone else? Who mirrors you when you're the mirror? Who sees you when you're the seer? This is the hidden burden of being both light and dark. You're often too deep for the shallow, too wild for the pure, too grounded for the ethereal. And so you learn to stand alone, not out of ego, out of necessity. But here's the paradox. In your isolation, you become sovereign. You begin to realize that your power was never meant to come from external validation. Your knowing is internal. Your guidance is intuitive. Your authority is earned not through titles but through embodiment. And as you stop seeking to be understood, you start becoming undeniable. You stop asking for permission to exist in wholeness, and you start embodying it so unapologetically that others begin remembering their own. So I want to ask you something now, something only you can answer. What if your loneliness was never a punishment, but a portal? A portal into deeper self-trust. A portal into divine independence. A portal into the sacred solitude required to carry a frequency the world has never seen before. Because if you can begin to see your in-betweenness not as a flaw, but as a function, then everything shifts. You stop trying to fit in, and you start realizing why you never could. You weren't sent to blend. You were sent to bridge. And that's not a metaphor, that's a mission. You are the connective tissue between polarities. You are the vessel where opposites collide and become something new. And that's what the world needs right now. Not more division, not more purity, not more rebellion, but integration. And integration doesn't come from theory, it comes from embodied examples. From people like you. People who've touched both heaven and hell and returned not with dogma, but with depth. You are not just light. You are not just dark. You are the place where they meet. And the more you own that, the more doors you begin to unlock, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. The sacred fire, why you've been burned so many times and what it was really preparing you for. There's a fire that follows the ones who walk both paths. Not the fire of destruction, though it often begins that way, but the fire of transmutation. If you're one of the few who has been called to hold both light and dark within the same vessel, then you know this fire intimately. It doesn't just touch your life, it consumes it. It strips away illusions. It burns off the masks. It scorches the parts of you that were never real to begin with. And for a long time, it feels like suffering. It feels like punishment. You ask, why me? You beg for relief. You pray for stillness. But the fire doesn't stop because it's not trying to destroy you. It's trying to forge you. You've been burned so many times. Burned by betrayal. Burned by loss. Burned by love that turned to ash. Burned by hopes that never bloomed. Burned by your own decisions, your own mistakes, your own shadow. And each time you thought it was the end. But somehow you survived. And not just survived, you emerged different. Sharper, clearer, more real. Because the fire doesn't just take, it gives you vision. It gives you clarity. It gives you the sight to see through illusions, yours and others. It gives you the kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books or gurus, but from standing in your own ashes and choosing to rise anyway. And that's the sixth sign that you are both a dark and light chosen one, Your life has been a series of sacred burnings. Not because you're cursed, not because you're broken, but because you were chosen to carry a frequency that only fire could prepare you for. The fire in your life wasn't random, it was intentional. Your soul chose this path, not to suffer, but to stand in a power so deep, so pure, so unshakable, that it could only be forged through the flame. And think about it, how many times have you rebuilt yourself? How many times have you started over, not because you wanted to, but because life demanded it? How many times have you had to let go of things you loved, identities you clung to, people who felt like home? And yet, here you are, still breathing, still rising, still walking with a truth that most people are too afraid to even touch. That is not weakness. That is alchemy. That is the sacred fire doing its work. But here's the piece most people never understand. The fire isn't just for you. It's through you. You were burned so you could carry something clean, something real, something that doesn't come from performance but from presence. Because when someone who's been through the fire walks into a room, everyone feels it. Not because of what you say, but because of what you embody. You become a living transmission, a lighthouse. Not one that shines with artificial light, but one that glows from the inside out, forged in the deepest valleys of transformation. And that's why your path has been so lonely at times, because most people don't understand what you've carried. They don't see the lifetimes of pain written in your bones. They don't feel the scars that don't show on skin, but the fire sees, the fire knows. And it has never been your enemy, it has always been your initiation. So here's the question I want to offer you now. What if nothing you went through was wasted? What if every heartbreak, every collapse, every moment you thought you couldn't go on was actually a ritual, a sacred rite between you and the divine? What if the fire wasn't there to punish you, it was there to purify you? Because once you see it that way, everything changes. The shame dissolves. The fear softens. The grief becomes sacred. You stop running from the fire and you start dancing in it. You start welcoming it in. You start saying, "Burn away anything in me that is not true." And that's when your power becomes unmistakable. Not loud, not forceful, but pure. People feel it in your silence. They feel it in your integrity. They feel it when you look them in the eye and see them not from judgment, but from knowing. Because you've been there, you've died 1,000 deaths. And now, your presence carries the medicine of resurrection. This is the hidden gift of being both light and dark. You don't just shine, you transform. You don't just illuminate, you ignite. You don't just heal, you rebirth. And the fire has made you unshakable not because you're invincible, but because you've embraced your vulnerability as sacred. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Fully here, fully alive, fully you. So if you're still in the fire right now, if your life feels like it's falling apart, if your identity is crumbling, if your spirit feels like it's being ripped open, trust it. Don't run. Don't numb. Don't try to escape. Sit in the flame. Let it show you what's real. Let it burn away the false. Because what's waiting on the other side is not just survival, it's sovereignty. And that's what this world desperately needs right now. Not more people who talk about the light. Not more people who worship the shadow. But those who have walked through both and emerged whole. And that is who you are becoming, not by force, but by fire. The final sign, you are the integration, and the world is waiting for you to wake it up. There comes a point in the journey where you stop seeking signs and start becoming one. A point where you realize the answers you've been searching for in books, teachers, rituals, and systems were encoded in your bones all along. A point where you stop asking, "What am I?" and start declaring, "I am everything I was afraid to be." If you've made it this far through the fire, through the paradox, through the loneliness and the downloads and the breakdowns, then you've arrived at the final sign. You are the integration, and the world is waiting for you to wake it up. This isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming true. It's not about being more spiritual, more holy, more enlightened. Those were just costumes you tried on during the earlier stages. Now, you're beginning to realize that the most spiritual thing you can ever be is fully human. Fully here. Fully alive in your contradictions. Because you were not sent to be an example of perfection. You were sent to be an example of wholeness. To show that light doesn't cancel shadow and shadow doesn't corrupt light. They are twins. They are lovers. They are you. And this is the seventh and final sign. You no longer identify with the polarity, you embody the union. You are no longer trying to be the light in the darkness or the darkness that reveals truth. You've transcended the story of duality altogether. You are the consciousness that holds both, without judgment, without shame, without needing to explain yourself to anyone. You exist as a field, not a label. And when people meet you, they don't quite know how to describe what they feel. All they know is that they feel more themselves around you. That's because you're not projecting a frequency, you're amplifying theirs. You're not here to lead or follow, you're here to awaken. And here's where it gets real. The world is shifting fast. Structures are collapsing. Illusions are unraveling. People are waking up, but they're disoriented. They're searching for something real, something that doesn't come with a price tag or a performance. Something that feels like home. And that's where you come in. Not as a prophet, not as a savior, but as a mirror. As a living permission slip. As a soul who has walked through the valley of forgetting and returned with remembrance. You felt the call, haven't you? That low hum in the background of your life. That whisper that says, it's time. Time to stop hiding. Time to stop waiting. Time to stop asking for signs and start becoming one. The integration is no longer about theory, it's about embodiment. It's about showing up in your relationships, your work, your conversations, as the whole version of you. Not the filtered version, not the version you think they'll accept, but the version that knows how to cry and channel in the same hour. The version that can hold grief and gratitude in the same breath. The version that doesn't fear being misunderstood because you've finally understood yourself. And here's the mystery. When you become the integration, you become undeniable, not because you're trying to be seen, but because you've stopped hiding. Presence becomes your power. Silence becomes your spell. Authenticity becomes your frequency. And that frequency is contagious. You don't have to convince anyone. You just have to be. And those who are ready will feel the shift. They'll feel the invitation. They'll feel themselves awakening in your presence, not because you told them to, but because you reminded them of what they already are. So now I ask you the question that marks the true beginning. Are you willing to stop choosing between who you were and who you're becoming and instead become both? Can you hold the light without escaping the shadow? Can you hold your power without collapsing into ego? Can you hold your softness without apologizing for your strength? Because the world doesn't need more chosen ones fighting over which side is right. It needs bridges. It needs integration points. It needs you, whole, awake, embodied, unapologetically human, undeniably divine. And if that feels like too much responsibility, good. It means you understand the weight of what you're carrying. But it also means you're finally ready to carry it. Not alone, but as part of a new collective of souls who are no longer here to ascend or descend, but to inhabit, to anchor, to embody. You are not just a dark chosen one. You are not just a light chosen one. You are the living integration of both, and the world has been waiting for you to remember that. Now go, not to become someone new, but to become all of who you already are.